rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on ANDOR.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times. Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Yeah, this is one of my all-time favorite shows of the year that we do. I absolutely love doing the listener feedback show. It's a bit of a holiday tradition for us here at Rebel Force Radio. And it's an opportunity for us to shine the light on you, our loyal Rebel Force Radio listeners. What would we be without you? It'd be a couple of guys just talking to each other every week about Star Wars, I guess. I guess it really wouldn't be that much different. No, it would be very different. Very different. The conversation always takes a different color, a different tone, because we know that you're out there and you're giving us feedback. We're going to be hearing a lot of that feedback tonight. We put the call out across the galaxy. And by galaxy, we mean RFR Patreon. And asked to have you send us some voicemails. Leave us voicemails, and because you really do ask some of the very best questions. We've learned that from doing years of after shows and really putting the RFR Patreons at the head of the queue. And so that's going to be peppered throughout the program. Also, a mega dose of Star Wars in pop culture. We're playing a little bit of catch up, and we want to make sure that we get to those. We've got some really great ones and some timely ones as well. But the bottom line is that we are just going to take it nice and easy this week. You know, it's the end of the year. It is. It's time to relax and reflect. I actually, a friend of mine gave me a bottle of homemade wine. And you know how that goes with the homemade wine. It's either going to be really, really good or really, really strong. I'm hoping for really, really strong. But I tell you what, here with me, never relaxing but always relaxed, is my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans.
I think that's a fitting intro, right? Always
really
relaxed,
nice.
but never relaxing.
Yes. Tight but loose. Yeah. Hey, welcome one and all to what I am considering to be the RFR Holiday Office Party. Yes.
Oh.
We got drinks. Cheers, Swank.
Yeah, cheers, buddy.
Cheers, Swank.
I'll get the lampshade on my head in a few minutes.
Yeah, I was wondering who's going to be making a fool out of themselves in front of the boss this year. But, yeah, we got the drinks. Swank's drinking the bathtub gin, and I have the this is a peanut butter whiskey that was a gift from my dentist.
Oh, man.
And
when the dentist gives out the booze, I tell you what, you know you found the right dentist.
Yeah.
He can never
he's a great
retire.
dentist, man. I love the guy. He's a friend, you know. He's like family to me, and he always makes going to the dentist fun. And whoever heard that before? Okay, well, I got to tell the story now.
Now you have to.
I'm going to make this as quick as possible because we have so many different voicemails and voice memos from you guys. We're turning the spotlight on you guys this week, as Jason said. We want to spread our holiday spirit and show you guys how much we love you and appreciate you. So this week, the focus is on you guys and your opinions, your observations, talents, humor,
hey, before you
musical
talk
skills.
About the dentist, some that didn't make the rundown, and I caught it on social media. You had a birthday in the house this week. Your youngest.
Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, you know, I was going to bring that up a little later in the show, but I wanted to say happy birthday to Dylan McInerney. He's 20.
Wow.
Remember Dylan? Little Dylan?
10 when RFR started.
No, he wasn't.
Well, he was 5 when we started podcasting together, but he would have been 10 when RFR launched. We'll put it that way. This podcast launched, but when we started podcasting together, he was 4 or 5. Real little.
Yeah, really little. Well, I guess we need to pull up the audio, the famous audio of young Dylan when he was a kid. Oh, I got a few pieces of audio from Dylan. Here's, there's so much. Dylan's whole life is kind of revolving
it's been played
around
out
Star
in
Wars.
audio format over podcasts and radio broadcasts and all kinds of things. Yeah, this is your life.
And
in audio.
Oh my goodness, there are just so many different things here as I punch in his name in the Rebel Force Radio archives. It's really funny stuff. So I'm going to give, oh my God, that's a great one too. Okay, so we're going to do a best of Dylan Mack. This is unplanned, but this audio is all priceless. And I'm not just saying that because I'm the dad, it's not like I'm forcing you guys to sit and look at family vacation photos, This is stuff that I'm presenting to you based on, sure, there's sentimental value there for me. This is my son. But on the other side of the coin, there's a lot of good entertainment value in this stuff that you're going to hear shortly, too.
Well, right now we're looking at a photo of the lovely Wendy Snyder with Dylan. I think this was from his birthday or fairly recently. She's posting
picture.
All kinds of lovey mom stuff on the Facebook. My baby's 20.
Wow.
But that must seem wild, right? I mean, 20 years old for your youngest. I mean, my youngest right now, my youngest is the age that Dylan was when we started RFR back in January of 2016. But as we said, we've been working together and doing Star Wars podcasts long before that. So at least as far as in RFR years, it's like dog years. We'll say in RFR years, it's been 10. Star Wars podcasting years longer.
I just want to take you through 3 stages of a kid's life and how it relates to Star Wars. And the first clip I'm going to play is the first time Dylan ever appeared on a Star Wars podcast. This dates back to probably 2007, maybe even 2006. But I'm guessing 2007.
Okay.
And we just had this fun little moment in my Star Wars collection. I was letting Dylan play with the collection. He was about 3 or 4 years old. And he was playing with the Ewok Village. Remember this, Jason?
Oh, yeah.
This is a
For
classic
those of you that
moment.
wonder, what would it be like to be raised by a huge Star Wars fan like Jimmy Mack? It must be just fun and games all the time. I don't know. You listen to this clip, you decide whether or not, because there was pressure. Here we go.
There was a lot of pressure. Yeah.
Awesome. Where's Luke? I need Luke. Guy's going down here. Hope you cute. Dad, will you get the sandcrawler?
What do you want?
Sandcrawler.
Well, don't get the sandcrawler down. You're still playing with the Ewoks.
Well, the Ewoks will go in the sandcrawler.
The Ewoks will go in the sandcrawler. Hey, we're G-level.
What?
We are a G-level canon family. Do you understand me?
What does that mean?
Nah, forget it. I'll get the sandcrawler.
All right, you didn't really hold your ground that long. You weakened very quick. I think it was that little voice. You weakened. All right, fine. I'll get this sandcrawler. It's going to roll through the Ewok Village.
We always talk about different levels of canon. And back then, that
was a big deal. Back
2007, that was there were designations for the canon. There was G-level canon, which meant all the Star Wars movies. Then there was like S-level canon. That meant the stories outside the films, like the novels and comic books and things like that. And then there was like a T-level. There were 5 levels of canon.
One level was just for the stuff that was in the film novelizations that didn't make it into the movie. It had its own designation.
Oh, yeah. So, it was real tricky. And so the ultimate top of the heap when it comes to canon back then was the G level, the George Lucas level of canon, which meant anything that came from George. And so Dylan wanted to play with the Ewoks in the Sandcrawler. And I called foul on that as somebody who was strongly adhering to the George Lucas level of canon back then. Lucas Puritan. Yeah. And I said, no, you can't. We're G-level family. And he had wanted nothing to do with that. He wanted Ewoks in the Sandcrawler. And I always remember Jason's line after I told him this story the first time. He said, well, Dylan has it all wrong. You don't put the Ewoks in the Sandcrawler. And I said, yes, Jason, yes. He goes, you put the Ewoks under the Sandcrawler. Drive right over them.
Pillage the village.
Shades of opinions I've heard come from Anthony Daniels himself regarding the Ewoks, those furry, lovable Ewoks. All right, so there's more here. So he gets a little bit older. He's a little older, a little more savvy about Star Wars. He sat down and watched the original Star Wars trilogy. And I think he was maybe 4 or 5 years old here, a little older than he was in the Sandcrawler audio. But here he is. He's a little older, and he watched these films on his own. And so I had kind of like a post-viewing interview with him where we sat down and we talked it out. We talked out the whole thing. It's probably about a half-hour conversation. Maybe I'll make that available to our folks at Patreon, just as sort of a little Christmas stocking stuffer there. Yeah. Because it's an interesting psychological experiment into the young Star Wars fan. And he shocked me when he told me that he knew about the big reveal in Empire Strikes Back.
Now, what about what Darth Vader said to Luke?
Luke, I am your father.
Yes. You knew that, though, right? That was already kind of spoiled for you?
Yeah.
You obviously knew that. Now, how did you know that before we watched the movies?
There's a Star Wars Robot Chicken that it says, Luke, I am your father.
You saw them talking about it on Robot Chicken, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, Adult Swim. Ruining Star Wars childhoods.
Spoiled that for young Dylan. Spoiled it for him. And then Dylan grew older, and he really grew to enjoy Star Wars quite a bit, tagging along with Dad sometimes and, sometimes on his own. And from when he was a really little kid, there was a connection he made to Ahsoka. He was like 9 years old. It was just something like, I'd almost say he had a crush on Ahsoka. But he really, really just, more than that, he connected with Ahsoka. There was just something about the character he liked. He enjoyed the quips. He enjoyed the action. He liked Ahsoka. Gosh, the first time he met Ashley Eckstein, wow, she talked to him as Ahsoka. His head almost exploded.
Yeah, that must be wild, as a kid. It's weird enough when you're an adult, let alone when you're a kid, and those lines are a little bit blurry still, reality and the characters and all of that.
So he was at that age where he could come home from school for lunch, and I was home, and I made him lunch, and we had a fresh episode of Star Wars Rebels to watch, which, it was the perfect amount of time, filled 20-something minutes, and then he'd be off to school. Well, it was the episode from, I think it was season 1, where Ahsoka makes her big return to Star Wars animation after 2 years of being on the bench. Ahsoka showed up in Star Wars Rebels. Remember, this is the first time we saw Ahsoka following her walking away from the Jedi Order in season 5 of the Clone Wars. Well, now she's back and she's in Rebels, and I knew this was happening, and I knew how much he loved Ahsoka. So I perched my iPhone in an angle where I could videotape him so I could catch his legit reaction to seeing her return in Rebels. And you can see that actual video up on YouTube, but here's the audio from that moment. And I'm telling you, folks, he did not know I was shooting him. This is absolutely legit. I can't remember what I gave him for lunch that day, but it must have been like vitamin enhanced because his reaction was through the roof.
A few Red Bulls.
Here's Dylan. Yeah.
That wave captured, we couldn't reveal the other rebels to the Empire. That was the protocol. The protocol has changed.
Who's this?
Fulcrum. Ahsoka.
What?
My name is Ahsoka Tano.
What?
Because of you and your apprentice, many in this system and beyond have heard your
Is that Ashley?
You gave them hope in their dark.
You're recording me, aren't you? This isn't going anywhere.
So what?
No, we will not be listening to this 10 years later or whatever it was. Yeah, on the show.
This isn't going anywhere.
You're recording me.
40,000 awesome. Views later on YouTube. This isn't going anywhere.
Ahsoka.
What?
My name is Ahsoka Tano.
What?
All right.
By the way, Jimmy Mac's reaction at the end of Solo when Darth Maul showed up was very similar.
It was, wasn't it? Oh my God, it really was.
Like father, like son. But no, I love that because you did that at a time when the reaction craze was really starting to ramp up. And you and I, we would always joke and we'd be kind of critical because it was like these reactions were so phony because the people are setting up a camera to tape themselves reacting. That was what was so weird. Like, all right, I'm going to set up this camera and I'm going to watch this trailer and you're going to see me cry. And you're going to see me get all excited. But this was something completely, because as you know, as we pointed out for years, like you're going to react differently when you're on camera. Everybody does. But yes. Dylan had no clue that he was being recorded at all. So that is raw reaction. And I think is really, he spoke for a lot of fans in that moment. We were just so excited to have her back.
Yep. Yeah, so happy birthday, Dylan. You know, he's endured a life of Star Wars, my Star Wars fandom, which, I mean, it sounds like fun and everything, but it might be taxing, you know?
Well, yeah, you grab a toy off the shelf that's not in line chronologically with the other toys on the table, you're going to hear about it.
Yeah. There's some challenges to that. All right, Dennis story real quick because now I tease it, now I got to do it. So years and years ago, my dentist, who I loved, Dr. Paul, he's awesome. I needed a root canal, so I had to get a cap on one of the back teeth, the molars. And so he said to me, hey, do you want a tattoo on that thing? And I said, what are you talking about? He said, no, this is a real thing. I have a friend who will do this. And I'm like, are you kidding me? He said, no, it's legit. Sometimes pilots or flight attendants will do that. And I said, well, why, Dr. Paul?
I think you know.
He said, well, just in case, the worst case scenario, their remains need to be identified, right? And I was like, oh, crap. And I'm like, but yeah, I could see myself being in the worst case scenario someday. Maybe not on a plane, but I mean, I'll make a mistake. I'll slip up somewhere. And it would be a good idea if my loved ones can be able to. Okay, let's move on from that talk. But I mean, that's just where it sort of originated was from that. And so he said, what would you like to get on there? And I thought of all these different things. And I went with the Rebel Alliance symbol, the symbol. Here's what I tell people: it's the symbol on Luke Skywalker's helmet, but it's in there. It's in my mouth. It's a collectible I can take with me wherever I go. And no, I'm not going to stick my mouth up to.
Well, the question is, Jimmy Mac, when you've gone to that, we'll get a. Hopefully, we'll get a pic. Well, you know what? Send me the pictures because we'll get it in the edit. So if you're watching this on the. Through the full video stream that we've got for Patreon members, we'll get it in there. But the question is, Jimmy Mac, when you do go to that big Rancho Obi-Wan in the sky, who's going to get the tooth? Have you already? First of all, I should say, have you made arrangements with Rancho Obi-Wan that they'll have it in like a little in Granny's pill bottle sitting up on one of those shelves?
Steve already has Star Wars teeth. He doesn't need mine.
Oh,
and he does have.
He does have a Star Wars tooth?
He does. He has Star Wars teeth in his collection.
Oh, all not right. In his head, in his collection.
Right.
Okay, all right. Wow.
Well, long story short, I like having this thing in my mouth because then I have a Star Wars collectible with me at all times, even when I'm completely nude. So, that's living large, folks,
Yeah.
So I got this thing in my mouth, and every once in a while there'll be a dental hygienist who sees it, and they'll comment on it. They've never seen anything like that before. And this lady this week, she said, well, I really like your tooth tattoo. And I said, thank you. She said, what is it, an anchor? I was like, no, it's not an anchor. If you look at it, it can kind of look like an anchor. But it's not an anchor. It's the symbol. I mean, of course.
It's right here. The Rebel Alliance symbol.
So I said, no, it's the symbol that's on Luke Skywalker's helmet. Mm-hmm. That's why I tell the civilians, I can't just say it's the Rebel Alliance symbol. But I mean,
Star Wars
I
muggles.
It's right. Okay, I just put a folder of the photos of the actual tooth itself into the...
Is it in the folder?
In the folder now, along with the teeth that are in the Rancho Obi-Wan collection.
I don't have it yet.
There it is. There it is before it went into my mouth. Mm-hmm. And you can see, I guess, I see an anchor. I mean, how accurate can they be with the detail on the back of your tooth in the back of your mouth? But there it is, and that's what it looks like still to this day, and it's been in there for a long time. So when she was poking around back there, she says, I like your tooth tattoo. I said, thank you. She said, what is it, an anchor? I said, no, it's the symbol on Luke Skywalker's helmet. And she said, oh, are you a member of the Resistance?
The Resistance? What?
Yeah, I grimaced. I grimaced. I think as I was laying there with her hand in my mouth, I still managed to grimace. And I said, no, ma'am, I'm a member of the Rebel Alliance. I'm original trilogy Star Wars fan. And she goes, oh, yeah, okay. I said, in the sequels, they changed it to Resistance. And she goes, yeah, that's right. She goes, I wonder why they did that.
You're like, how long do you have? How long are we sitting here together?
Yeah, I said they've never really revealed why they did that. But I'm sure it's the same reasons why they don't call Boba Fett's ship the Slave One anymore. Anything referring to the Civil War in that time is verboten.
Oh, boy, I never thought about that. You think because of the rebel connotation?
The rebel.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
I do think that. I really do, and that's really,
thought of that before.
I think it's pretty transparent and consistent with the Slave One thing. So I think that's what they did. I don't know how prevalent Rebel is so much in like Andor. I wasn't taking count of every time they said it, but I'm sure they said it a few times. All right, this is an exclusive directly from the collection of Steve Sansweet at Rancho Obi-Wan. These are actual Star Wars teeth. Bridgework created for somebody, and the teeth themselves are.
I mean,
yeah, a little. You think?
I'm a fan. I've dedicated a lot of my life to this stuff, but my God.
I mean, the teeth themselves are shaped in the form of characters' heads. Darth Vader, Boba Fett, Stormtrooper, X-Wing pilot. I think that's another Darth Vader, and a Jawa? Or no, that's a Royal Guard.
It's a Royal Guard. I gotta question how Steve came into the possession of these things. I don't want to throw around any accusations, but I mean, did he work out a deal with the with the funeral home, the mortician? What are you going to do with those teeth? You wrestle them out of the guy's head as he's laying there.
Steve can tell you right away. It's probably a dentist created these and gave them to Rancho Obi-Wan. I don't know if somebody actually created those to be put in his teeth, But it was a moment where I was going back and forth with him, and this was years ago, and I was just kind of bragging, hey, I got a Star Wars collectible you don't have. You don't have Star Wars teeth, man. And he's like, he sent me that back.
And it said,
I remember the email with the photo. It said, it opened with Piker with an exclamation point. I had to look that up, too. I'm like, Piker? What's that? What is Steve calling me there? And I don't even remember what Piker is. Piker. It's not the character from Star Trek. Piker, a gambler who only makes small bets. A person who withdraws from a commitment. No, I think it's a gambler. What is Piker in slang mean? Simplistic individuals who are said to have limited impact on the operations of the market or a business. So, yeah, I have
Mac, minimal impact.
the tooth in my mouth has minimal impact on the operations of Rancho Obi-Wan. This is true. But I would like to give it over to those guys, when you and me go in a land speeder crash, trying to thread the needle in Beggar's Canyon. It won't be pretty. But we'll give it a shot.
All that's left.
How did they die?
Star Wars.
How did it happen again? Well, he's showing me his tooth as we're trying to thread the needle at Beggar's Canyon. It's just messy from that point forward.
Those Power Wheels land speeders. They don't know how that happened. You remember that? Power Wheels? Land speeder? What?
I don't know what a Power Wheels land speeder is.
Remember they had the Power Wheels version of the land speeder?
I don't know what
the kids get in.
Is.
Power Wheels, it's like the electric car for the little kids.
Oh, it was like a child-sized land speeder. Kids,
yeah, it was a Power Wheels.
In.
I can't believe you didn't know what a Power Wheels was.
Well, no, I don't know the brand name, but I know the item you're talking about, and it was really cool. It was a little land speeder that kids can,
great.
Charge up and drive around, And when Toys R Us shut down, some of those land speeders were going for like $50. They wanted them out the door. Yeah. If you're lucky if you found one. I tried to actually hunt one of those down. They were retailing for about $300, and they were going out the door for $50. So they're fun for kids. It's hard to find the room for it in your collection.
We got in one. Do you remember when we got in one? Or at least I did. At Star Wars Celebration.
You did motor
remember
off
when we were doing
didn't you?
Remember when we were doing that the mouse droid battle, or what was that with the droid builders? And you could get in one of those radio flyer land speeders. There's got to be a photo of that somewhere.
There must be some video for crying out loud of that. I'm gonna have to dig. I'm gonna have to dig that up. So thanks for the reminder.
Great.
Thanks to everyone who answered the call and left us some listener feedback this week. We're going to be featuring it. But first, we have this musical interlude brought to you by RFR listener Hunter Chambers, who sent this to show at rebelforceradio.com. Chut chut RFR. Hunter from Anaheim here. I was listening to old Mando after shows, and Jimmy coined the phrase, I don't like Han talking Wookiee, and I don't like Pelly talking frog. I remember saying that. Inspiration struck, says Hunter Chambers, and thus this rap was born. I'm not a rapper, but I tried my best, and I use this awesome royalty-free beat from the internet. I hope you find it funny and enjoyable, and would love for you to share it on the show if you deem it worthy. Well, guess what, Hunter? I think this is worthy. I think this is totally worthy. Listen closely to the lyrics. There's a lot of RFR inside humor and jokes in here, and just a clever rap put together by Hunter Chambers as a tribute to Rebel Force Radio. So take it away, Hunter.
Shut, shut. Shut, shut. Shut, shut.
My name is J Mac, this is my buddy Swank. We're RFR and honestly it's pretty great. So let me tell you about the Star Wars podcast. We got anything and everything to do with news, conversations, and laughs. Oh, we got Puppet Lando, we got Hog Squaddle. Throw Puppeteer in the mix and you got lightning in a bottle. Interviews with the Clone Wars crew, catch at Matt, Steve, and Stan. By the way, fun fact, did you know that Jason lives in Canton? If that's not enough, don't worry, we got some more. Much more different parts of the galaxy to explore. We got Billy Mack and Big Steve, two of the funniest in the game. Have you heard my Felt Needs Some Felt? Or Mandalorian? More interviews than anybody with Dave Filoni. Honest after shows, no shills here, no baloney. And if you don't agree with what we have to say, lock us up on Narkina, we'll find the one way out to escape. Except for maybe Swank and my man Kino Loy, cause they both can't swim, but maybe survival instinct will be employed. We don't like Han talking Wookiee, nor Pelly talking frog. Don't talk bad about Baby Yoda or we'll have to cast you off. We get the latest hot takes from our young friend Blake, and we don't listen to Skywalkers if their name is Jake. But we love all Star Wars here, even The Last Jedi. Though that movie does make me want to cry and heave a heavy sigh. Sometimes Ryan's dialogue got me feeling messed up. Makes me want to be like Rey and just say, ugh. But let me stop right there, that's enough. It's starting to sound like I'm fighting what I hate, not saving what I love. So what are you waiting for? Listen to RFR today. It's free except for Patreon. For that, you must pay. But it's only $1 to get your foot in the door, and it helps support the show and unlocks you so much more. But alright, this song is done. Let's get to listening and have some fun. So grab some Jawa juice and a flag and a spotchka. Relax, hang loose, you know Rebel Force Radio gotcha.
Oh, man, that was phenomenal. That was so good.
That was outstanding.
Was great. He got so many references in there. Yeah, no shills, no baloney. I think that's my other favorite line there with the after shows. Love it.
There's a lot of good stuff in there. Thank you, Hunter Chambers. You are a rapper, my friend. And that was proof right there that you are a rapper. No doubt about it. And we really appreciate that. We love the creativity. If you feel so driven to be like Hunter and fire up your recording device of choice and you want to lay down some beats fueled with RFR lyrics or whatever. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever you want. Whatever you want. We want to hear it. So that's show at rebelforceradio.com.
You must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message, Doctor, the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply.
Hey, Jimmy. Hey, Jason. How you doing? This is Jimmy from California. I have a question for you. I don't think anyone's asked you this. I was wondering, how did you guys originally meet, and how did you guys both come up with the idea to create the Rebel Force Radio podcast? Because it just is an awesome podcast, and that's where I get all my Star Wars material from, outside of the movies. But anyway, I was just curious and thought you could let everyone know how this all began. Hope you guys are having a good day, and look forward to hearing your next podcast. May the Force be with you.
Wow. It was Swank's fault.
Yeah.
It was all Jason's fault.
Well, Jim, there is a great documentary, mini doc that was put out by Sheldon Norton called When the Galaxy Listens. It's all about the origin of Rebel Force Radio and the podcast that we were on before RFR, how we met. But I guess we can give you sort of a abbreviated version here. Since you asked, I was working at an insurance company back in late 2005, and was working with a pal, a guy that he eventually became a very good friend of mine, and we were always talking Star Wars. There was an aisle between us, and the thing what happens when you're working like any kind of telemarketing or anything where you kind of do it over and over and over and over and over again, you can multitask. You can be, I shouldn't say this, but you could be taking, a recorded statement from somebody who's just been in an auto accident at the same time, you're having a conversation about, the latest Star Wars movie that just came out at the time with the guy next to you. And this was going on a lot. And so that was also at a time where podcasting, especially like in the tech space, was really starting to tech off. You had guys like Adam Laporte, This Week in Tech. You had the Podfather, Adam Curry. That really started the whole medium. And I was just fascinated because I've always loved radio, especially talk radio, as a fan, as a listener. And I was greatly influenced by local and national radio personalities growing up. And so I was like, wow, this is cool. This idea of podcasting where anybody can sort of have a radio show. And so it was just always percolating in the back of my mind. Wouldn't that be fun? And I was a big fan, of course, as we all were back in those days, of the Force.net website. I mean, that's where you talk about where you get all your non-movie news. I mean, that's where we all went and got our news back in the day. And I saw that there was a posting that they were looking for somebody to host a podcast for the Force.net. I didn't even know it had an incarnation prior. I really had no idea that there was a Star Wars podcast from the Force.net. Apparently there was. It lasted a little while and then, fell by the wayside. So they were looking to revive this thing. And so I sent an email. And at the time, I assumed that these people were getting millions of emails. And they got a lot, but I didn't think I would even have my email looked at. But I sent an email and I said, hey, my friend and I here think that you ought to give me a shot at hosting this podcast. And by friend, I had attached a photo of me with Ian McDiarmid backstage at the stage door in New York City. He was doing a play over there, The Healer, I think it was. I, of course, didn't see the play. I just hung out and waited for him to come out of the stage door. Anyway, got my picture taken with him. It was enough to get noticed. They reached out. I said I was dumb enough to say I would provide a demo. And they said, sure, send the demo over. And so I just looked over at my buddy and I said, hey, what are you doing tonight? He's like, nothing. I said, you want to record a Star Wars podcast? He's like, okay. So we leave work and we hit the Radio Shack. I'm not joking. The Radio Shack. We bought a couple of cheapo, headphones and with the microphones on them, and we recorded a demo. And we waited like 3 or 4 months for them to listen to this demo, and they eventually said, yeah, you got it. We like you guys, and we started doing it. And it wasn't that long, Jim. I mean, I want to say certainly within the first year of the show that you found us. Yeah. You were actually a listener and, of course, a radio professional for many, many years, and kind of immediately kind of got not only what we were doing, but also what we were attempting to do.
Right. And it was a really interesting time for me because Wendy, my wife, she's a talk radio host, and she was hosting Afternoon Drive. She was part of a team, and I would always listen to her on my way home from work.
Where's Luke? I need Luke.
Dylan. Oh, little Dylan's here.
Sorry about that.
Where'd he come from? Always jumping into the spotlight. But Wendy was getting knee surgery, and so she was off the air. And this was around the holidays, 2006, and I kept seeing posts on the Force.net about the Forcecast, hosted by Jason Swank and Pete Nadel, and I didn't have an iPod at the time. I never really made a habit of listening to podcasts. I tried the first version of the Force.net podcast, and that didn't appeal to me really. But when I heard Jason and Pete, I was like, wow, these guys have great chemistry. I love what they're doing. I love what they're talking about. And they just seem like friends, and they seem friendly. And this is the type of Star Wars conversation I'm down with, because I never heard Star Wars conversation like that before. So I binged the back catalog, still without an iPod, but I was burning the shows to CDRs, recordable CDs, and I'd listen to them in my car, and I did this for about a week, and at the end of the week, I said, well, geez, they got the Star Wars celebration coming up in L.A. the next spring. wouldn't it be nice to know people at that thing? And I love Star Wars so much. There's no more films coming out. What's going to keep me involved? I always wanted to be involved, but it seemed like the only way to be involved was you had to be part of a website team, and you had to. And I wasn't about the forums or anything like that. I was just, I was kind of lurking, but I wasn't a website guy. But when I became aware of podcasting and what Jason and Pete were doing on the Forcecast, I said to myself, I want to be a part of this. This is something I can finally do to contribute and give something back to the Star Wars fan community. Wow, wouldn't that be great? And then I could go to this convention in LA and I could roll up on their table or whatever, their booth, and say, hey, I'm Jimmy Mack. Oh, hey, nice to meet you. It maybe, just be nice to know some people there. Because me and Billy Mack went to a few of those Star Wars celebrations, and it seemed like a lot of people knew each other. It seemed like there was a lot of camaraderie going on, and we just were disconnected from that because we weren't part of fan groups. We weren't part of website teams, nothing like that. But podcasting, I knew how to do that right away. When it was the first day, I knew exactly what to do with podcasting. And so I reached out to theforce.net. They brought me on board right away, much to Jason and Pete's chagrin. Because let's be fair about it, you guys were getting your feet on the ground. You guys were doing really well. I mean, after a few months, it seemed like you were really in your groove, and then all of a sudden, I get dropped on you guys. And there was a little resistance at first, which I expected from Jason and Pete, but it seemed like
we were intimidated. We were just a couple of bozos that were hanging out with each other after work and, talking to our Radio Shack gear. And, here's a guy that had real pedigree in the business. And so we were like, oh God. Well, I remember saying to Pete, like, well, it was fun. We had a good time. Now,
Game over.
Now Chicago is going to come in and take over.
Yikes. Well, I expected that. I did. And I respected that. And because I was a big fan of you guys. I didn't want to do anything to rock that boat. You guys were providing with me a ton of entertainment and information. And just remember at the time I was taking the train downtown to work. It's about a 25-minute ride. And it was just nice to have you guys in my earbuds on those train rides. It really was. And hiking through downtown Chicago with you guys in my ears, it was just fabulous. It was like I was wrapped up in this warm Star Wars cocoon of fun and entertainment and conversation, people who got Star Wars the way I did. So naturally I wanted to contribute. But I didn't really, the last thing I wanted to do was to rock the boat. That was until I had Pete Nadel eliminated for good.
But you did it in Pete, such a kind way. You sent him a woman that would become his wife.
Yes,
he got a new house. He got a new job. I mean,
I'm totally
when Jimmy takes someone
this.
out, believe me, you want to be taken out by Jimmy Mack because your whole life changes for the better.
Yeah. Well, so that's just what happened. What Jason said, life changes and everything. Pete didn't feel like he.
Where's Luke?
Hey, Dylan, hold on. What? Okay, hold on a second. Somehow, that Dylan clip is connected now to this camera. So I've got that taken care of. So every time we get the close up on Jimmy Mack, Dylan starts talking. Anyway,
it takes me back to that time when Dylan was younger, and so was I.
By the way, when we were talking in the background, we had the trailer for When the Galaxy Listens. Sheldon Norton, a great friend of ours, covered us, followed us for years at various events and put it together in this fantastic documentary. It's all available over on our YouTube channel. Not just the documentary, but there's some shorts and some things, footage of kind of a reunion of Jimmy Mack, Pete, myself sitting around my kitchen table talking about the old days. It's great fun. So do check it out. It was a really, really great piece, and we owe Sheldon a great deal for putting that together for us, because it's, we joke about, hey, someday when we're gone, but I look at that and think, wow, that's something that, my kids are going to have forever, your kids are going to have forever, plus thousands of hours of us talking, which is pretty wild to think about.
The show will continue after we're gone, and it's going to be, Parker on your end.
Okay.
Michael and Dylan
that.
on my end. They'll just be typing in what they want us to say, and then the show will go on with our voices and everything.
Oh, you're saying so we'll do that. Yeah, they'll have that fancy voice technology. The re-speecher. Yeah.
Everyone knows that's going to happen. And Blake, Kid Blake will somehow be in the mix somewhere. All right, let's keep the line moving here.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Thanks for giving us that chance to go down memory lane. Let's send it over to Trent.
Hey, guys, my name's Trent. I live in Palm Beach. First time I have called into the show or left a voicemail. Just wanted to tell you guys I became a Patreon member. First time I've ever paid for anything in my life like this. Love the show. Didn't even know podcasts exist until a few months ago when I got a Tesla and I had all of these apps popping up on my Spotify. And love Star Wars, about the same age as both of you guys. Didn't know that this whole world existed outside of the first 3 movies and then the follow-up 3 movies. But I listen religiously to you guys. I actually have a car service that I own, and I'm probably taking 60 to 100 different people every week to the airport. So I always tell everybody about you guys, trying to get you more downloads. Love the show. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I loved all the new movies coming out. ANDOR, I absolutely loved. It was such a different feel. Favorite episode was definitely the last, but seeing the TIE fighters flying over Aldhani and listening to that, and even the follow-up scene at the end of the credits on the last episode, seeing the Death Star, absolutely amazing. Watching Luthen, the Jedi, as we all say, truly believe he is a Jedi. No way that he has both holocron, Sith, and the Jedi without being a Jedi. Who knows, he could be a Sith.
Keep on
watching
believing.
The episode where he escaped from the Star Destroyer, throwing the little metallic nails onto the tractor beam was absolutely amazing. I don't think we gave Andor enough credit for the visual effects. It came so long since using potatoes as asteroids in Star Wars. But keep up the good work. I'll call in one day. Love the interviews you guys have. Not very many people get Dave Filoni on as interviews. Even listened to the little James Bond episode the other day. It was great. So I'm thinking about bumping up to the $50 a month Patreon. I'm doing the $11 a month right now. Anybody that's listening, give you guys some money. What you do is a lot of work. I try to start my own podcast, and it's a lot more work than people think. So what you guys do, absolutely amazing. I mean, you probably put in at least 30 to 40 hours a week. It's not easy. So anybody out there listening to the show, love it. Sign up for Patreon for these guys and give them a little bit of money. I mean, $5 might not be a lot, but sure adds up here or there. Once again, thanks a lot, guys. I will call in later. And if you're ever in Palm Beach, hit me up. Free ride anywhere you want to go. Thanks, guys.
Nice. Hey, man, I don't need to be there by accident. You're a destination now, Palm Beach. That was very nice of you, Trent.
Yeah.
That was really, really great. And thanks for giving us the opportunity to plug Patreon. It really is. It's a great community of Star Wars fans and people who have been listening to this show, since its beginning. But then there's guys like you that just show up and hadn't really heard of podcasts. Boy, that's interesting that he hadn't heard of a podcast till he got a Tesla. I remember the days where it was like, I never heard of podcasts, and then I got an iPod, and then, I started looking up Star Wars and found you guys. And then the iPhone, that changed everything.
Yeah, sure did.
So it was like iPod, iPhone, and now, these cars that have internet in the car themselves, like the Tesla.
Yes.
It's like turning it on the radio.
That's going to be a big game changer when that becomes more of a standard feature in American cars, where you can just punch up these apps and stuff. But right now, I sync my iPhone, and it works out pretty well. So everyone, I'm so happy you take us with you on the go and enjoying full show video over on Patreon. Recent RFR Q&As, which is a weekly show on Patreon. Recent episodes include Star Wars Celebration 3 Memories. We have Andor, Iger, and Force Ghosts.
You can call him Andor. Remember, Luthen called him Andor
yeah,
in that first episode.
Andor. Getting older with Star Wars. We have Joe Dallas's top 10 Star Wars things that don't matter anymore. And then the most recent RFR Q&A with RFR VIP Jamie Bruno. Jamie Bruno brings the conversation to James Bond. We have a very Bond-centric edition of the Q&A, and so that's what VIPs get to do. They get to host these Q&A shows with me, and you guys can pick whatever the topic is. And so it's really a lot of fun, and some real friendships have been forged through the Q&As with me and the VIPs, and then all of the supporters on Patreon. That's a great community there. People are really supporting each other. They are communicating with each other. They are sharing thoughts and ideas there. We have a great community tab on Patreon where people are talking Star Wars and beyond. It's just great. So we hope maybe you'll consider hooking up with Patreon maybe over the holidays when RFR is on a little bit of a break. We got one more show coming for 2022. It's coming next week, and we think it's going to be a pretty good one. If you're going to be missing us in those couple of weeks when there's downtime and there's no RFR, there's plenty to catch up on Patreon. And like you've heard before, only $1 gets you in the door. $1. And you're listening to RFR Q&A. And then you can adjust to the tier you feel is appropriate for the amount of support you want to throw behind RFR and how much you want to listen, how much you want to watch, or if it even comes down to it, RFR VIPs, how much you want to host. Be a podcast host and host RFR. Oh, the Babu Freaks will be popping in too before the year's over there on Patreon as well. So that's my Chicago crew of Star Wars fans, the Babu Freaks. They always have a lot of great Star Wars conversation to bring to the microphones for you guys. So be looking for them coming back to RFR on Patreon next week. Thank you, everyone who supported us in 2022.
All right, who we got next? How about, I know this guy. How about Eric?
Hey, Jason. Hey, Jimmy. This is Eric from Phoenix. What expanded universe item, topic, storyline would you guys like to see made into animation, live action, some type of content that we get in the future? We've got a lot of great content coming, but just curious to get your guys' thoughts. Is there anything out there, any gold to mine that Lucasfilm hasn't used? From my perspective, I would love to see an animated series based on the Heir to the Empire series, or Tales from Mos Eisley's Cantina, or Tales of the Bounty Hunters. I know that stuff's all legends, but it exists. It's there. It's something that a lot of people would love to see. I think you could do it in an animated format. It gives you great content for Disney Plus, and you could put a label on it that says this is Legends. So that's my 2 cents for something I'd love to see that we know we're not getting as of right now for content down the road. What about you guys? Thanks for all the great content in 2022. Want to wish everybody in the RFR community happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Had an awesome time at the Bash and looking forward to what comes in 2023. Thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks, Eric. Always great to hear from you. What a great guy. Fun seeing you at the Bash. Okay, so for me, I have 2 thoughts about this, Jim. The first thought was, I started to fixate on the animated question. Like, what do I want to see animated series? Yes. And I just have so much love and nostalgia for the Clone Wars. So I started thinking about, well, what Clone Wars story do I really want to see animated? Because when I think animation, it's hard for me to think like original trilogy, classic, legendary characters, of the OT. It's not what comes to mind. Yeah. And I started thinking like, it's pretty well laid out. I mean, between Tales of the Jedi this year, Clone Wars, Rebels, there's not a whole lot left untold that I'm dying to hear. Now, I'd love to have some new stuff that I don't know about. That would be great. I love Clone Wars era. So when I think animation, I think Clone Wars. I guess the Tales of the Jedi really whetted my appetite for a little bit more Dooku. I thought that was great. Wouldn't mind seeing an expansion on Dooku's adventures with young Qui-Gon. I think that would be really cool. But then I started thinking live action, and especially in the shadow of Andor, what do I want to see live action? And I tell you what, I would love to see a guy like Tony Gilroy give us a Palpatine origin story, kind of like they did with the Plagueis novel.
Yeah.
James Luceno's Plagueis novel, which is, I think, a great blueprint. And you get a great writer like Tony Gilroy, and you cast that sucker with some great, great actors. I think you could have a really, really, and there's tons of politics and intrigue, and there's mysticism because on the one hand you got Palpatine, living in both worlds, in the political world on Naboo and in the capital in Coruscant, and also, what he's really doing. So anyway, that would be my pick on the live action front. So animation, anything Clone Wars in that era, I would love. And then live action, I'd like to see something on Palpatine.
Yeah, well, the Darth Plagueis novel still to this day stands up there as a great novel that hasn't really been corrupted by any cracks in the canon armor or anything like that. I think it still can be slotted in there as a story that works with all aspects of Star Wars, including the streaming series, including the sequels. It can all work. Now, speaking of the sequels, Dark Empire is one of my favorite Star Wars Expanded Universe stories. It was Dark Horse Comics, and it was a great miniseries in the mid-'90s, but that's been picked apart so much to fuel The Rise of Skywalker. They picked so many elements out of that. I mean, it's slightly an adaptation of that novel. Slightly. It takes elements of that story. So that kind of corrupts it for being told as an animated series. However, if they wanted to take the art style of Cam Kennedy, who was the artist who drew the comic book, and created an adaptation of that story animated, that would kill. People would love that. People would love that, and that would be under the Star Wars Legends banner. Jason, Clone Wars, you bring that up. Son of Dathomir was a comic published by Dark Horse. It was toward the very end of their first run with the Star Wars license, right before it reverted back to Marvel. And they had the Son of Dathomir story, which was based on unused plots and concepts for the Clone Wars animated series. So was the novel Dark Disciple, which tells the story of the fate of Asajj Ventress. These are prime candidates to be made into animated series, or just mini-series if they want to, or even animated films that they can stream, much in the vein of how DC does it.
Real quick, let's talk about this idea of Legends material getting not canonized, because that's not what is on the table here with Eric. He's just saying, hey, slap the label on it so that people know. It's like a disclaimer. This is Legends. This isn't canon. It's hard. I got to tell you, I've always been this way. It's hard for me to get excited about anything that doesn't have a kernel of truth or possibility to it. I just can't. It's not the way my brain works. So I'm so convinced that Lucasfilm and Disney would never do this. They would never put the money, invest the money in adapting something that is not canon, because they have really, I think, prided themselves on the fact that they think they've created this massive, completely consistent canon of Star Wars with all the films, animation, comics, novels, etc. So I don't think they would ever do it.
Just what would be on your wish list this Christmas if Santa is going to grant you what you want? All of the things we brought up so far are really stellar, but something that gets often forgotten is the Crimson Empire storyline, which I really enjoyed. It was Dark Horse Comics. It was a story about one of Palpatine's royal guards, a guy named Kirk Hanos, and he went rogue. And so, I think there's a lot of potential in latching onto a character like that, because the stories you can tell are just vast and huge. A guy who has knowledge of what the dark side is that's fueling the Empire, and he's a rogue royal guard, and he's out acting as a vigilante.
Here's an interesting idea. So they've got this line of action figures, both in the 3 3/4 inch and the 5 inch, or the Black Series scale, called Gaming Greats. And what that tells me is that there seems to be a little bit more leniency or forgiveness when it comes to canon in video games, that they realize that video games by nature are not necessarily canonical because they can have various endings, and so they're not held to the same standard as, say, a novel or a comic book. What about, if they're willing to go to that well for merchandise and things unapologetically, what about the idea of an adaptation of something like The Force Unleashed, or an adaptation of something like The Knights of the Old Republic? Now, I know there's talk about turning that into a live-action feature, but
always, yeah.
Could some of these? What about the Cal Kestis story? They've got a lot of this artwork and models and renderings and all that stuff done. How hard would it be to sort of connect all the dots and make that into some sort of animated feature? That could be fun.
Lots of potential in something like that, especially a Cal Kestis film, but that would be down the road. That would be way in the future, because he's fueling the video games, and it's the only Star Wars video games coming out. Think about it. Jedi Fallen Order, ever since that came out, I mean, what's shown up? The sequel's coming out in March, and the trailer dropped and looks really good. I'm a big fan of that game, and I'm going to try to
the Battlefront franchise
replay.
Seems to be kind of dead on the vine, and that was everybody was banging that drum. Everybody loved Battlefront. My problem with Battlefront, I thought, was that they overcomplicated it. So here's a non-gamer perspective. I loved the original Battlefront because I could literally just drop in anytime, get my jollies for a half hour and play, one of these epic battles. But then the newer one came out and it was so complicated, and you had to be online in order to play it, and it just it was too much. And I know that's just old guy stuff, and I'm not a big gamer, but I think sometimes when these games are so complicated, it turns off casual buyers. And I don't think something can become a blockbuster game without attracting casual buyers or casual gamers.
Yeah, it has to have that element that not only appeals to the Star Wars fan, which is the only thing we're looking for here on Rebel Force Radio.
Of course.
But it has to have the quality of gameplay, obviously, that lives up to the Star Wars name, and also lives up to the expectations of cutting-edge gamers who are going to make it a classic. It's not all just Star Wars fans that make these games become legendary classics. Games like Jedi Fallen Order, or like Battlefront for that matter, or Knights of the Old Republic. It's the gaming community that is, vast and filled with people from all kind of different places and likes and what have you. They might not necessarily be huge Star Wars fans, but they know a good video game when they see it. So they're very down with the new releases that have the Star Wars title on it. That's why, Star Wars has to provide, in my opinion, the most cutting-edge gameplay to live up to the standards of Star Wars. And there's been too many games over the years that have been released that don't even come close to the standards of Star Wars. I'd rather take a Jedi Fallen Order or a sequel to that once every 3 years, if that's all they put out, as long as it's superior quality.
Yeah.
That's what I want. Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't that long ago before the sale of Disney, or sale of Lucasfilm to Disney, that George was experimenting by sort of combining the people in the visual effects area with the video game people. He really believed that they were essentially doing the same thing, and that he could sort of combine those teams, people that were making stuff for the screen and then making stuff for the video games and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's cutting edge. We need Star Wars to maintain that. And Jedi Fallen Order definitely does. It's like one of the best video games I ever played. I can't wait for the sequel.
Hey, Rebel Force Radio. This is Joe Dallas and
Jana Dallas.
And we are here to say happy holidays to everybody. Say it, Jana. No, don't freeze up. Say happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, and that's what we wanted to say. And we can't wait for the Bad Batch. We watched the whole first season together. We can't wait for 2 to drop and the after shows. Thank you to everybody from the RFR community. We have a great time listening to all of your shows and the Babu Freaks and all the VIPs and Jason and Jimmy and a fantastic main show. And, well, we'll say it one more time and say say something.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, don't say happy birthday because that's wrong. Okay, bye, RFR.
Hey, thanks, guys. That's great. Appreciate that. All right.
Joe Dallas coercing his daughter into leaving us a message.
Speak up.
Or else. Or else. But,
hey, Jimmy. Hey, Jason. This is Mary.
Hey.
Wait, did you have more to say?
I just want to say that I love Joe Dallas, and he's a great RFR VIP, and he's hosted many episodes of RFR Q&A with me. And if you want to check out what it sounds like with me and Joe Dallas talking Star Wars, just check out Patreon. Only $1 gets you in.
Hey, Jimmy. Hey, Jason. This is Mariana. So this last year has been really crazy for Star Wars news, and it's been pretty awesome getting to see all the different Star Wars shows come out and people's reactions to it. And I'm really looking forward to hearing Ahsoka and Mando Season 3 and the Bad Batch. So I'm looking forward to another great year for Star Wars next year. But what really concerns me is, like, going forward, are we going to maintain a civil discourse regarding people expressing their opinions over shows? Like, for instance, I expressed my opinion how much I felt that ANDOR, the season 1 finale of ANDOR, was very underwhelming, and some random person called me out and said that my lack of understanding why ANDOR was underwhelming was the one that was underwhelming, and that I need to stop being political, but I never mentioned politics at all. Like, I feel like in the last couple of years, it's been so hard to have a decent and normal conversation about different shows and people's different opinions and why some people like the shows, why some people don't like them. But what really makes me love RFR is that you guys, is that everyone's allowed to express their opinions in a great and a respectful and a very civil manner. Do you think going forward that hopefully in this upcoming year and the change in the leadership, surprise change in leadership in Disney and Lucasfilm, I don't know about Lucasfilm, but Disney, yes. Do you think that going forward we can still maintain respectful and decent conversations about different opinions of shows and movies without having the need to get so nasty and so just hateful and toxic and just gaslighting others who don't view the same way that we do? Anyway, that's just how I feel right now, but I'm looking forward to a brand new year, new Star Wars, and more content from you guys. So thanks, guys. May the Force be with you. May the Force be with you always.
Well, thanks, Mariana. Stick with us here at Rebel Force Radio. We will do our best, as we heard earlier in the RFR wrap, no shills, no baloney with us here. We tell it to you as straight as possible, but we always attempt to do it with respect and listening to each other and all of that. I think there's a lot of ways you could, handle this. For me, I'll tell you one thing that I'm resolving to do, and I do a fairly decent job of it, but I think I can do better in the new year. And I think everybody really should, to be honest, is just to stop caring so much about what other people think and stop caring about other people's ideas and thoughts. Stop trying to police it. Stop trying to judge it. And above all, stop being so afraid of it. Stop being afraid or allergic to the idea that there's a person that has a thought or an idea or an opinion or a belief or a religion or anything that's different than your own. Why do you care? Unless it's really impacting or affecting your life, why do you care? And that goes for everybody on all sides. Like what you like, vote for who you want to vote for. I'm kind of, old school. You don't talk about sex, politics, or religion, in good company. That's how it used to be back in the day.
That was common. Yeah,
and
back in the day when we used to say to ourselves, boy, I'm sure glad we don't live in a world where we could read each other's thoughts. And now, I mean, it's very commonplace to read each other's thoughts. And with that comes their opinion. And naturally, opinion breeds opinion. And it sometimes just seems like this never-ending cycle. But, I always lean on that very Zen thing that Qui-Gon Jinn said to Anakin Skywalker, let your focus become your reality. And that's such a great thing to say because everything really is up in your head, no matter what it is. It's there. It's up in your head. And if you want to dwell on things that make you upset, you're going to be upset. So why not just dwell on the things that make you happy? And Star Wars makes you happy, even if you don't like Andor. This is now leading me to my third point, which is a motto that I adapted this year, and it's just enjoy Star Wars. And a lot of people think that means, hey, you have to drink the Kool-Aid and you have to love everything that has a Star Wars label
like it's
on it.
a mandate, like you're commanding it.
Just enjoy Star Wars. Don't worry about what other people are saying about it. If you like it or if you dislike it, just that's you, man. And nobody else should be in control over that other than you. And I think that's a very Star Wars-y message to hold on to. I mean, Luke Skywalker, for crying out loud, he had Yoda and Ben telling him he fails and they didn't want him to leave to save his friends. And, we know that didn't exactly end up great for Luke, but still he put things in motion that might not have happened unless he did make that move. At the end, he benefited from it. So, trust your gut. Let your focus become your reality. Just enjoy Star Wars. And you'll be fine. But just remember, too, if you throw something out there, you say Andor sucks or you don't like Andor or something, you got to expect opinion breeds opinion. So you have to expect a little pushback to that. And unfortunately, some people act like uncivil animals when they're hiding behind a keyboard. And they don't talk to people like how we talk to people in the real world. And so that sort of uncivility, you have to just say to yourself, well, if I'm putting something negative out there, like I don't like ... you might get some very negative and uncivil responses. So, responsibility comes to the user a lot of times, too.
Shut, Rebel Force Radio. It's Blake from Florida. Wow, 2022 was a crazy year for me and my Star Wars fandom. Looking back at it, I loved Tales of the Jedi. That was absolutely beautiful miniseries. I really hope we get to see more of that. Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga. Great game. So much fun. Great addition to the video game side of things for the franchise. And then, I couldn't make Star Wars Celebration. Got to do some other cons in Florida, but couldn't do Star Wars Celebration. We got to do an RFR meetup this year with VIP Joe Dallas. Shout out to you, buddy. Got the meetup at a local retro arcade bar in my town here in Central Florida. But, then there was the things I did not like. KENOBI, I thought it was a terrible show. Unlikable characters they added. The writing was abysmal. And then there was ANDOR. I got through the first 6 episodes. I thought it was really well made. But the show just wasn't for me. So, looking back, I definitely came to a realization that going forward with so much coming out that I'm not going to like everything. It's not like the olden days where just everything that came out, I just ate up and thought was gold, but definitely not the case anymore. And that's okay. I think you guys have been kind of saying that for a while now with Star Wars. So with your guys, point of view with where you're at, do you see a lot more people coming to that realization with the fans, hardcore, casual, even your family and friends? So those are just some of my thoughts from this year, and I'm really looking forward to the next year. And thank you for being there for me, and all the other fans this year. And we love you guys. So may the Force be with you.
Jim, we've brought up before on the show about how there's one of the things that made the prequels so intense and the reaction so intense is, we believed as fans that was it. We had 3 more movies, and as each one came out, it's like, oh God. We only have 2 more. oh God, we only have one more. Well, yeah, this has got to be perfect. It's got to be perfect and make me feel all the feels that I had.
And the pressure.
Oh, tons of pressure on the, obviously on George and then on the fans as well. So I'm seeing a little bit more, some of the rhetoric is still ratcheted up, but there is part of the conversation that goes, well, but I am really looking forward to Ahsoka, or, oh, I can't wait for Mando season 3. So even if Andor wasn't your thing, there's something around the corner that you're looking forward to, and it's easy to find some common ground. Just today I was talking to someone and they were not a fan of Andor. And I said, oh, but did you hear that Mando's premiering on March 1? And then we were like, oh yeah, I can't wait to see Mando season 3. So there's enough out there that you should be able to, find something that you can agree on or like. And even some of the people, the more, thoughtful people that didn't love Andor, they're still willing to say or able to say, wow, it had some great performances, it had great production quality. So I think it's getting better out there just because there's less pressure.
Yeah. I think it allows the creators a little more leeway. Andor, I understand if Star Wars fans didn't like it because it's so vastly different from anything we've seen in Star Wars before. Book of Boba Fett, I still think that show's a hoot. And I've been rewatching it lately, and no, it's not perfect. And no, Boba Fett is not exactly the sort of protagonist to really carry a series. But there was just so much cool Star Wars stuff in that show, and sometimes I only just grade Star Wars on its ability to immerse me back into that environment. And the Book of Boba Fett certainly did that. Again, I get the criticisms, but it doesn't do anything to damage the fun I have with that show. I was just watching the one with the train, the second episode of Book of Boba Fett. I was watching that last night. There's so much fun stuff in that. I mean, just fun stuff, stuff I've always kind of wanted to see as a Star Wars fan. And again, I mean, the weaknesses in the show may be a little apparent and the sort of cartoony nature of it, but I mean, it is Robert Rodriguez, for crying out loud. What you expect? And Kenobi, I really think was the one production that was really damaged the most by the COVID pandemic and the lack of accessibility to certain things. And I mean, Deborah Chow, it was her first time to helm a full series of Star Wars. And, I think it's debatable as to whether she was really ready to carry that mantle, especially with something as profound as the story of Obi-Wan Kenobi in exile and his, unbeknownst to us, reunion with Darth/Anakin. I mean, that's a huge flipping story.
Yeah, we talk about thrown to the deep end of the pool.
Jeez, I mean,
that really was.
And where was the consultation with George Lucas on something like that? Did it happen? Maybe it did, and it just didn't get any coverage. Maybe George said, well, I'll tell you these few secrets, and I don't want to be attached to this thing. I don't know, man. I don't know. I just think a story of that magnitude, there should have been really a lot of care taken with it. And if the COVID pandemic forced it to come off looking at times cheap, which I think it does, ultimately, and unfortunately, there are times when it does look like it's kind of done on the cheap. Then there are elements within Kenobi that make no sense, but I don't really care about those because I only cared about the story of Obi-Wan and Anakin. But the whole Reva thing just doesn't add up, no matter how you look at it, how you want to slice and dice it. It doesn't add up. And then there was all that other social media baggage attached to that whole thing that really kind of sucked the wind out of the whole premiere of the series. And here we are rolling on a high after Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim, where, I mean, I couldn't be higher as a Star Wars fan. Seeing the first 2 episodes of Kenobi and being there and being surrounded by the props and the actors and the fans and the energy and stuff. And then we come home to all this social media crap again attached to a Star Wars production. And it just seemed like Man, how unfortunate. So I get where people are coming from with Kenobi. I do. I really do. But I still say just enjoy Star Wars, And maybe there'll be another season of Kenobi. Who knows? And we'll get somebody good to direct it. But I don't think Deborah Chow... Now, she did provide... There were some shots in that show where I thought were exceptional. I mean, there were just some shots where I was like, wow, that's some exceptional photography. And then there were some other times where I just felt flat by what I was seeing. It just didn't feel epic.
Though it still gave me what I feel is the best moment of Star Wars in 2022. I'll say that my top moment in Star Wars in 2022 was the "you didn't kill Anakin Skywalker, I did" moment.
Yeah.
That was the moment.
Hard to deny the impact of that moment on even the smallest of Star Wars fan, the slightest of fan.
Yeah.
You had to feel that. And there were all kind of other cool things too. We get to see on screen exactly what Ben was up to. The whole subplot with Luke and Reva and how she takes a saber in the gut, how the Grand Inquisitor takes sabers in the gut, they live, and it's just like, well, the dark side. Okay.
Well, the dark side.
Okay. Yikes.
Sith magic, somehow.
Yeah. That stuff that's not going to fly. You have to really develop something a little more solid than, oh, well, their hatred kept them alive. Shut up. Just shut up. For crying out loud. I mean, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Since,
if that's the case, I know some people that are going to live forever.
Yeah, I know. Why
die.
does hatred provide any sense of immortality like that? Yeah. I mean, that was something Palpatine was chasing. He was chasing that.
And if hatred was the answer, he would have discovered it. The guy was full of hate.
He was an expert at hating. I mean, he was like
hate.
Yeah, he was Professor Hatred. So it would have been easy for him. What was he chasing? What was he chasing? So plot holes. But, it's fun to talk about it.
No, it was lots of fun. All right, more Star Wars in 2022.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Jimmy. This is Casimir from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I just wanted to say that I think 2022 was really just a fantastic year for both Star Wars and Rebel Force Radio. I really appreciate what you bring to the Star Wars fans week after week. And I thought everything that we got from Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Tales of the Jedi, ANDOR, they may have had their ups and downs, but all in all, I just had a fantastic time watching all of it and listening to your shows. And I just wanted to mention, I lost my grandmother this year. She was 101 years old. She was a legend. And it reminded me that back in the 90s, she took my brother and I to Disney World in Florida. And I remember riding Star Tours with her. And I just remember what a fantastic time she had on that ride. She was laughing and clapping and just so into it. I think we went on it several times with her. And she just had a blast. And I don't think she had ever seen a Star Wars movie up to that point. But it just kind of, it reminded me that there is something in the DNA of Star Wars and this saga and this franchise that I think just captivates people and pulls them in. And as long as Star Wars keeps that, I think we're in really good shape. So yeah, looking forward to watching everything that's come out so far again and again. Looking forward to 2023 and everything that Star Wars and you guys are going to bring us. So thanks a lot for everything, and may the Force be with you.
What a great name, Casimir. That's an awesome name. Yeah. That could be a Star Wars name. God bless Granny. I know how special grandmas can be. And I was doing the math, Jim, and I'm thinking, okay, so if Grandma passed this year, she was 101, which is incredible. And she was riding Star Tours back in the 90s. Grandma was still in her 70s. Riding Star Tours multiple times. That's pretty incredible.
Multiple times. We can't get Swank in his 40s to ride it more than once. Without his eggs getting scrambled.
Grandma's all excited.
Granny, she's on there. She's going over and over again. I mean, I'll be honest with you. There's only so much of that crap I can take myself. And listen, don't let anyone ever get you on the Simpsons ride over at Universal. Talk about scrambled eggs. That
really, the Simpsons ride?
Oh, yeah, that That will put organs inside your body in different places at the end of that ride. But yeah, stay away from that one. It's similar to Star Tours in that it's that motion simulator thing where you're watching a video and the motion of the cabin is in sync with what's going on with the video. But in the hands of the Simpsons in the land of Springfield, forget about it. It's insane. That canceled the day for my whole crew one year. So yeah, that's just a little tip. And I've heard this from other people too. Insanity. But yeah, Casimir, yeah, that's great, man. He was able to share Star Tours with Granny. We really appreciate the kind words you said about RFR, and we had just as much fun with Star Wars in 2022 as you did, I think.
Hey, Jason and Jimmy. This is Michael from Louisiana. Just wanted to call in and say thank you for another great year of Star Wars RFR content. It's hard to believe that this year's almost over and we're about ready to roll into 2023. It seems to have gone by so fast. But we've had a great year of Star Wars content, you know, starting off in the beginning with the finale of Book of Boba, which was great. And, of course, the Kenobi, which was one of my favorites this year. ANDOR was just recently wrapped up, which was phenomenal. Can't wait to see what they do with Season 2. And then just little sleeper hits in there like Tales of the Jedi, which was fantastic. Way too short, but fantastic show. Looking forward to Bad Batch Season 2, as well as Mandalorian and Ahsoka. Can't wait for those. Little prediction, I think, for Bad Batch Season 2. I'm thinking that Crosshair might possibly turn back to the good side. There was just something about the final 2 episodes of Season 1, which I just recently rewatched. He just kind of, with the conversations with him and Omega, I just kind of got that feeling. So, little prediction. We'll wait and see what happens. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up, too. I'm getting ready to head over to Galaxy's Edge in a few days. It'll be my first time going down there and seeing everything in person, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Have fun.
And I'll keep an ear out for when I go use the refresher to see if I can get you guys any fresh content from down there. But thanks again for all that you guys do. I really appreciate the shows and all the time that you both put in to give us such great Star Wars content. So thank you so much. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
You know, some of my top highlights surrounding Book of Boba Fett are some of Tim Morrison's PR appearances. I always loved when Tim was on camera talking about Boba.
Yeah.
You know, especially him with Ming-Na Wen. And I was, she was a great discovery too. I started following her on Instagram. What a wonderfully positive person she is. And I tell you what, age is nothing to that woman. I mean, she's really in incredible shape, and she's got such a great attitude. If you need to pick me up, go hang out with Ming-Na Wen on Instagram or wherever you can find her, because she really is. She's great. But yeah, the Rancor Rodeo was amazing at the beginning of the year. And he's right. You know, sleepers like Tales of the Jedi. Definitely want to see more of that. And because it's an anthology format, they can go back and do, other things and give us more. My takeaway with Bad Batch, and I learned this about myself last week when we were doing the trailer play-by-play, is that not as much of it stuck with me as I thought it would. But then again, there was so much Star Wars that happened after it. But I will say that it's not staying, it's not staying with me. So I'm hoping that season 2 gives me it has a little more staying power. I'm hungry. It's like Chinese food. I'm hungry like an hour or two afterwards.
Hey, I want to just say is we're heading into the holidays. I think everyone should check out our buddy Kevin Lyle's website, Norse Legion. Check it out. It's the Allie Guinness pint glass here. I'm drinking beer out of it tonight because this is our office party. And it's a really just great thing to have for any Star Wars fan who also enjoys a cold one from time to time. It's the Allie Guinness pint glass, and it's great. And it's super popular, and everyone should have one in their collection. You can get yours now at NorseLegionStore.com.
Hey, he takes Apple Pay, too. There's no excuse.
So you can roll over there right now and get yourself a pint glass. I did a list of top Star Wars gifts for The Strategist, which is an offshoot of New York Magazine, for my top Star Wars gifts. And I mentioned the pint glass, the Guinness pint glass from Norse Legion. And I mentioned gift someone a membership at Rancho Obi-Wan. And neither of those two made the final cut. So only a couple of things I mentioned made it into their article. They went with pretty run-of-the-mill stuff here, It's just Legos and how much Legos can you buy one person? Yeah, very mainstream. That one I suggested was the selfie action figure that Hasbro is offering. So, yeah,
was
I
that
brought that
Snake
one
Eyes? Look at Snake Eyes on. They didn't even use a Star Wars character.
I told them that. And she said she was going to tell the editor, and they never did. I was like, by the way, that's not Star Wars. It's G.I. Joe. You might want to look into that if accuracy is your thing. This is an article about top Star Wars gifts to buy. And listen, I'm really happy.
Not a lot of strategy went into picking that photo, did it, Strategist?
Oh, but I told them, and there it is, still sitting there on their webpage. What the hell?
Love it. Well, okay. Have you gone and done this selfie thing? Are you considering it?
Kind of considering it.
Okay. And what body would you go with, Jim?
Probably your X-wing pilots.
I thought so. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I looked at it. I'm like, I don't know about like the Jedi. It's just not. But I mean, the RFR is the X-wing pilot. That's and that's what I want it to represent. So
we're the rebels.
Here's the problem, though. If you do it, you have to let me know because I want to buy one of you because I want to be able to put it next to one of me. But I'm going to need a customizer to deal with the height differential. It's the same body, and that's not going to work. So I got to find a good customizer that can, cut down on the legs or something.
Or just an X-Acto knife. Just cut him off at the knees and put the boots on.
What I'm going to look like Tim Conway in Dwarf on Star Wars.
Dwarf. That's right. Dwarf the X-wing pilot. That's hilarious. But okay. Well, we'll figure this out. We'll figure this out. This will be something we'll do for 2023.
All Hasbro needs is people emailing them asking, can I get the Jimmy Mack or the Jason Swank version of the selfie?
Yeah.
Could happen.
The dolls can go on like adventures together, kind of like the Mr. Bill show. And
oh man.
Yeah. We'll have to get one to stock and one to rock because the ones we'll be using for that video series will most likely get damaged by the fire and explosives.
Now we could get real meta and do a puppet Lando. Can you imagine uploading that face to the Hasbro Selfies website?
I wonder if they would accept that.
I wonder if they would.
Yeah,
their AI computers.
Now everyone's going to do it.
Cannot sculpt.
Now everyone's going to do it. I mean, but what if there was somebody like a kid in school who's like bullying you around and stuff, and you wanted to get an action figure made of him, and you submitted a photo of him, and you got it, and then put him through a bunch of awkward positions and unflattering
Wait a minute, are you talking like a Star Wars voodoo doll?
Well, no, I just think it would be funny for photo ops,
Oh, I see. Like, embarrassing photos.
Yeah, here's Sammy the bully from 8th grade being bent over by Darth Maul or something. I don't know. That's the type of revenge that I would.
That's where your mind goes when they unveil this Star Wars selfie.
Well, I'm just saying,
figure.
What's going to stop somebody?
Get revenge on all my enemies.
Somebody else. Like I can order a Swank action figure and yes, treat it as a voodoo doll. And they have you doing all kind of weird stuff during the shows. It's like all of a sudden your arm starts twitching around and I'm sitting there with the action figure pulling on the arm and it's sticking pins in it. Okay. These are goals for 2023. These are goals.
Goals. 2020, #2023 goals. All right.
Star Wars and pop culture. Rebel Force Radio.
You've already made that Star Wars reference.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars parody! All right, appropriately enough, we're going to kick off this segment of Star Wars and pop culture with the big guy himself, Santa Claus and the Santa Clauses. Tim Allen is back.
This is a series on Disney Plus with Tim Allen back as the Santa Claus, or one of them. Seems like there's a whole bunch of them. And they all get together in the 5th episode of the Santa Clauses on Disney Plus. And when they all get together, when you get the Santa Clauses from throughout history and different cultures all together in one room, you know there's going to be a Star Wars reference dropped by one of them. Full show. And it happens. All the past Santas are arguing about the challenges of performing their duties in their specific times throughout history. And listen closely for the Star Wars reference. Thank you, everyone who let us know about this, too, by the way. Tons of people lit up the email about this one. Christopher from Peru, Illinois is one of them. So thank you, everyone.
Don't you see? Everything is connected to Christmas spirit, going all the way back to jolly old St. Nicholas.
I thought I was doing the right thing. The job was getting really difficult. Like, I assumed it was me.
The job has always been difficult. I deliver gifts during drought, colonization.
Try the Dark Ages.
Big deal. I had the Great Depression, World War II, Vietnam, and the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Come on. Oh, the Star Wars Holiday Special. Come on, how did that affect Santa? That only gave booming business to Santa.
Probably.
I cry foul.
I mean, let's face it was there to keep those toys flying off the shelves. I mean, that was really the prime motivation for the Star Wars Holiday Special to exist in the first place, is to keep kids interested in Star Wars. So, I mean, what's more Christmassy than finding a Millennium Falcon under the tree? Or a plastic tauntaun to fight with your sister over. But, I mean, the Star Wars Holiday Special kind of gets thrown under the bus there, as it probably should. Right away, when I learned of this particular reference, I got a hold of our buddy Steve Kozak, who is producing A Disturbance in the Force, the ultimate documentary about the Star Wars Holiday Special. And I'm like, hey, Steven, we got a fresh one. So you never know, that might end up in the documentary. And I hope our interview with Mark Hamill, where he talks about the Holiday Special, I hope that ends up in the documentary, too.
I'm sure that's all been turned over, right?
But there you go. That's the latest Star Wars Holiday Special reference found in pop culture. This is, I guess, easy enough to do on Disney Plus. You know, that's cross-promotion for them in this day and age. Yes. But we have more. We have some more pop culture references. This is an oldie but a goodie. And I just wanted to, this, for some reason, landed in our email inbox. It's something that goes back to 2008. Grey's Anatomy. Remember Grey's Anatomy? Still on. I think it's in its like 50th season now.
Yeah, since 2005. This show premiered when Revenge of the Sith came out in theaters.
Wow. So yeah, Grey's Anatomy, that show's been around for a long time. I remember when this particular reference dropped, and I was really kind of stunned at the detail that went into these references. So there's two of them from this episode, season 4, episode 16. You get two Star Wars references going back to 2008, Grey's Anatomy. Here's the first one.
I'm the guy who died in a block of cement trying to impress a girl. I'm like Han Solo. In Star Wars, he was encased in carbonite.
See, I don't even need to see that episode. I know what's going on. There's a guy somehow ended up getting stuck in cement. They're trying to free him from it. And the irony is not lost on one of the doctors there, the comparison. But apparently the patient has no clue. He's a Star Wars muggle. You know, they're out there.
But this is the second reference from that same episode. And this is the one that really, really impressed me.
I'm a loser. I'm a loser. I'm a loser.
Come on. Andrew? Andrew, hey, lady, listen to me. Han Solo
is not a loser. Han Solo got encased in carbonite, and that was a big mess, but that's not what he's remembered for. He's remembered as the guy who made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs, and who braved the sub-zero temperatures of the ice planet Hoth in order to save someone he cared about from the big ugly Wampa. He's remembered as the guy who swooped down at the last minute, blasted Darth Vader out of the sky so that Luke could use the Force and destroy the damn Death Star. Hey, Princess Leia saved him from the carbonite. And they fell in love, and they saved the universe, and had twin Jedi babies that went on to save the universe again. Right? Now, that's the whole picture. The carbonite was just a piece. Okay? Well, so I like science fiction. Anybody got a problem with that?
No.
Great. Wow, that's the whole, like, Han Solo, this is your life, Han Solo, in a nutshell, right there. Boom.
But I remember when this episode originally aired in 2008, and my sister-in-law, she is a loyal viewer of Grey's Anatomy, and she said, hey, you should see the scene from the latest Grey's Anatomy. This girl tells the entire story of Han Solo. I said, oh, really? She said, yeah. Tell me if I'm missing something. When did Han Solo get married to Princess Leia and they had Jedi twins? When did that happen? And I was like, oh, they referenced that in that show? And I didn't even believe her until I saw it. But obviously, they're referencing the Timothy Zahn Thrawn trilogy and the birth of Jaina and Jason Solo. So, yeah, I thought that was a deep cut for an ABC drama series that airs in prime time. I was like, wow, that's a deep cut. And it had my sister-in-law asking a lot of questions. So I said, go read your Zahn, woman. And I was pretty impressed by the writers of that show, who dropped that in there. Now, the character who's delivering that lowdown about Han Solo right there, that is Dr. Miranda Bailey. And she's played by the actress Chandra Wilson, okay? Mm-hmm. She's still on the show.
Oh, is she?
I mean, what, Jason? You said Grey's Anatomy's been on since 1912. And right. She is still on the show playing that same character. So amazing. Fast forward now to the year 2022. Grey's Anatomy's still on. Season 19 now. Wow. And here's episode 2. Lisa Thomas from Australia reaches out to tell us about a cool Star Wars reference that happens in a new episode of Grey's Anatomy. And so, again, if you're a fan of the Zahn Thrawn trilogy, this will perk up your ears.
You are using me for information about the hospital. You want me to be your deep throat.
I prefer Delta Source. Imperial intelligence source during the early years of the New Republic.
Huge. Now, for those of you who may not remember, like Jason, do you remember what Delta Source was in the Thrawn trilogy?
No.
All right, let me see if I remember this correctly, because I thought it was brilliant when it was revealed. There was a leak. Somebody was leaking government information, New Republic information to the Empire and Grand Admiral Thrawn. It was coming from Coruscant, and they couldn't figure out how it was happening. They thought it was a droid. But there's these weird trees in a plaza on Coruscant that have this phenomenon where the leaves change color right in front of your eyes, and it happens like all the time. And somehow the Delta Source was using these trees and them changing color. When they did so, they sent out some sort of burst of energy which contained these communications back to the Empire about the inner workings of the New Republic on Coruscant. All right, that's all off the top of my head. I didn't look up Delta Source or anything like that. I think that's how I remember the story happening. I read this book back in the bathtub back in 2000, like 2002. It was a long time ago, 20 years ago. But that's how I think it went down. No, it was even longer than that. It was 30 years ago.
Yeah, because that came out in the 90s.
It came out in the early 90s.
Right.
This is 30 years ago. I still remember reading it in the tub. Deltasaurus. When it was revealed, I was like, wow, that's brilliant. And it's such an obscure reference. Even hardcore Star Wars fans like Swank, who I consider to be an expert level Star Wars fan, Jason. I don't know if I ever tell you that, but it's true.
Oh, well, that's very kind.
I mean, you have to be hosting a show like this for 17 years.
A long time.
You have to be.
It's almost as long as this character's been on TV.
It's almost as long as this Star Wars and pop culture segment. So, Deltasaurus. So that's a real obscure reference. Lisa Thomas in Australia caught it. She says, mentions of Deltasaurus, New Republic spies of all things, with a smiley face that's the one that's laughing so hard it's crying emoji. And yeah, I love it. And amazing devotion to consistency that is Dr. Miranda Bailey, 20 years later, still professing her love for Star Wars and the expanded universe, specifically the Thrawn trilogy. So
something tells me that's not the only Star Wars references across the whole span of 19 seasons of Grey's Anatomy with a character of like Dr. Miranda Bailey. Also tells me that there's some writers in there, obviously, that are big fans, and they've been with the show since 2008.
Yeah, showrunner, I forget her name, but she's been with the show forever, and she writes a lot of the scripts. She must be a big Star Wars fan.
Love it.
Now, Phil from Somebody Feed Phil, I've never heard him talk about Star Wars before, but Somebody Feed Phil is a funky show. It's about this guy who's he's a television producer. He shows he
Phil
worked
Rosenthal.
on.
Everybody loves Raymond. Everybody loves Raymond. He created
Yeah, that's
that
his
show.
big deal, right?
A lot of people
That's his
think
big
that
deal.
the series is about, like Seinfeld was about Jerry Seinfeld's real life. A lot of people think that it was about Ray Romano's real life. It really wasn't. It was about Phil Rosenthal's real life.
There you go. So he's in the show Somebody Feed Phil, and I guess he just goes around to places throughout the country or world, and he gets food. I don't really
travel show on Netflix. I have some friends that are really into it. They just love the guy. And he's a super likable guy. There's no question about that.
Well, that's what they say about him.
Yeah.
That's what
love
they say.
watching him.
I only know him from that episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm where he goes out to lunch with Larry David and hilarity ensues. Of course.
Well, Larry's trying to avoid him at all costs. It takes great measures.
Yeah.
That episode to not be annoying.
Hilarious. No spoilers.
You're right.
So here's Phil Rosenthal, and he's with Brad Paisley in Nashville. And this is from season 6, episode 5 of Somebody Feed Phil, and you'll hear a Star Wars reference within this audio clip.
For someone like me, gives me the courage to open a crazy restaurant project because you know that you're going to have the support, and so you do it.
You are a Jedi. You are. I mean, I wouldn't care if you were a mass murderer with this food.
All right, so Brad Paisley calls the guy a Jedi. Who?
So it's really Brad Paisley that's dropping the Star Wars reference.
Yes.
Which makes me like Brad Paisley even more.
For someone like me, gives me the courage to open a crazy.
So good, I wanted to hear it again. All right.
Yeah. Well, we heard it once. It wasn't, it was an okay reference. Anybody can call anybody a Jedi. I want to hear a clever quip or retort or like out of the blue reference, like the Star Wars holiday special, like a bunch of Santa Clauses standing around talking about the holiday special. That to me is a Hall of Fame.
All right, I'm gonna just say this right here and right now. I don't want the Star Wars holiday special to become the next It's a Trap. Okay?
Oh. Interesting.
You know what I mean? Right?
Yeah, but I think it's a trap is a joke. It's a trap is a joke is kind of that's like within fandom. The holiday special is like something I think outside of fandom. It's a pop culture reference. And yeah, we'll see. Like, how is history going to treat the holiday special? Is it going to become more and more of a punching bag, or is Stephen Kozak's documentary going to provide it with the legitimacy it requires to not become like the butt of jokes? It's very interesting times for the Star Wars Holiday Special. Stay tuned.
Indeed.
Wow.
And somewhere there's a really good print of that. Somewhere, someone's got it.
There's some good prints on YouTube. There's one that says 4K. It's pretty good.
Oh.
It's worth watching. It passed the test on my big screen, so.
Mm-hmm.
But, I used to have the crappy bootlegs with all the commercial spots in it and everything, and those have its own charm as well. So, all right, here's more pop culture. Simon from London, England says, love the show, first-time emailer. We here in the UK have a certified Star Wars fan as our new Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. Here's a little clip from him talking about his fandom on the BBC. This is from 2019 when he had a junior role in government. Exciting times in the UK for Star Wars fans, says Simon. He's down with their new Prime Minister, Rishi. As you know, there's been a lot of turmoil there with the Queen appointing someone to be the Prime Minister. Then she passed away, and then that person stepped down, and now Rishi Sunak is the new Prime Minister of England.
3
and
Prime Ministers in, 3 months they had. That's a first for the for Great Britain.
I've worked at radio stations where we've had 3 program directors in 3 months as well. So I feel what you're going through there in England.
But nobody ever changed the format. They're not running around wearing sombreros now all of a sudden in the UK.
This is true, Jason.
That'd be nice if can you imagine if UK said we're changing our format. We're no longer English.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be interesting. But that is never going to happen. So here's Rishi Sunak.
Yeah.
Despite your wishes, Jason, I know, it's Christmas, but you can't get everything you want for Christmas. And the idea of the entire country of England going exclusively Mexican is not going to happen.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Although it would be fun to watch. Rishi Sunak, big Star Wars fan. Here he is talking about his fandom on the BBC.
I'm a huge Star Wars fan. And, I think I would take Star Wars over Star Trek any time. I've gone to midnight showings of the movies. I've read all the books. I have lots of stuff at home.
It's what, toys?
Toys, lightsabers, Lego.
Toys? As a Star Wars fan.
As Prime Minister, is he allowed to admit that now? I mean...
Well, he's he can do whatever he wants now as Prime Minister.
I guess so, yeah. Star Wars for everyone.
He helps make the rules. Well, I like it. I like that he's saying it loud and proud as a Star Wars fan. Now, anyone can claim to be a Star Wars fan. We're going to have to see if there's some credibility here. What lies beneath the claim?
Right. Well... The BBC announcer is thinking the same way you are, and he wants to put Rishi Sunak to the test, and he has a Star Wars quiz Mr. Sunak must take, and so let's see how he does.
In episode 1, which politician loses a vote of no confidence?
Senator Valorum, Chancellor Valorum.
Correct. Which planet becomes the subject of a trade war between the Senate and the Trade Federation?
Naboo.
Which intergalactic union does Count Dooku's separatist movement want to leave?
The Galactic Republic.
Intergalactic, yes, correct.
These are all, by the way, those questions are all episodes 1, 2, and 3, which are for true fans. That is the later stage
That's
stuff.
why we set them. We made it difficult.
Fine.
Which controversial high-ranking strategist becomes the commander of the Death Star?
Governor Tarkin.
Yes. Got 4 right so far, 1 more to go.
Right.
After initial success, the Rebel Alliance flee to which icy planet where they're attacked by the Empire?
Hoth.
All right, I'm going to give it to him. I think that I think he's, at this point, I would say I'd give him B level. I'd give him B level fandom right now.
Well, he didn't miss a single answer. So
they were all fairly easy questions.
They weren't. Some of them were softballs. Hoth, yes. But some of them, I mean, in rapid fire succession like that, they weren't like the easiest questions. It's not like what's the weapon of a Jedi lightsaber.
Yeah. The Tarkin question I thought was the hardest, especially the way it was phrased.
Well, I thought the question about Dooku was interesting because it could have thrown a curveball. He says, what organization is Count Dooku?
Trying to leave.
Trying to leave.
Yeah.
And so you might want to say, well, the Jedi. But as a separatist, he's the leader of the separatists, so he wants to secede from the Galactic Republic. So that could have, tripped you up.
Okay.
Rapid fire
B+.
like that, but not Rishi Sunak. I think he shows us he has exactly what it takes to be the Prime Minister of England.
I love it.
God bless him. If anybody has a contact, we'll get him on here. We'll have him answer the Yoda questionnaire and really put him to the test.
Get Richard Cheese out here for that one and do it in person. We got the PM.
I like the matchup.
Great Britain, that would be great.
I love it. All right, Russell writes to us and says he's got another reference. Mythic Quest, streaming on Apple Plus, Season 3, Episode 6. There's a Star Wars reference. So let's hear what's going on with Mythic Quest.
Hold on. Isn't Brad your assistant?
No. I'm not her assistant. I'm assisting her to live up to her true potential, much like, Emperor Palpatine mentored Darth Vader.
I am not Darth Vader.
Okay, fine. Darth Maul.
Why are all your Star Wars references villains?
They're the heroes.
You're insane.
Okay. Guy?
I've been meaning to watch this show. I have heard such great things about it and got a lot of friends that are watching it and have watched it. That's a nice reference. I'll tell you, now he's not in that clip, but F. Murray Abraham, great actor from, Amadeus and a million other things. I always thought that F. Murray Abraham would be great in Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The F stands for F, yeah. I'd like to see him in Star Wars. He is a great actor. I didn't know he was in Mythic Quest. I got to admit, the little tiptoeing I did into that series didn't really do anything to make me say, oh, I want to see it. Because sometimes when I get turned on to these series with people making pop culture reference suggestions, I go and I look at them, and that's when I really sort of say, is this a show I think I'm going to like? And unfortunately, Mythic Quest did not tick the boxes of my favorable scores. But hey, that's just me. I'm not a big TV watcher, guys, so it really has to have something that really connects with me right out of the box. And if you have people telling you they love it, and our buddy Russell here, he thinks it's a good show. He's watching it. He's reporting the Star Wars references. So, who am I to say? This old curmudgeon Jimmy Mack, All right, here's Coulter Gill. Coulter Gill, I love the name, Coulter Gill. And this is going to be our final pop culture reference of the show. This is Coulter Gill reporting to us that in Phineas and Ferb Season 1, Episode 24, out to launch, Phineas and Ferb, I like saying that, Phineas and Ferb are in a rocket chasing after their sister Candace when Phineas and Ferb encounters asteroids. Watch for what Phineas says. So here it is, Season 1, Episode 24 of Phineas and Ferb in a Star Wars reference.
Didn't they do their own show? They did a whole episode about Star Wars.
Yes, actually quite enjoyable, streaming on Disney+.
Guys, what are all these red flashing things heading towards my rocket?
Yeah, those are asteroids.
Asteroids?
Just like Beggar's Canyon back home.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I love it.
It's a great one. Phineas is guiding the spaceship through the asteroid belt. And so you think to yourself, oh, somebody's going to say something about the odds being 3,752 to 1 or something like that. Whatever the actual odds were. Somebody's going to be like, oh, Jimmy Mack was quoting Empire Strikes Back and he got the odds totally wrong. The actual number is
whatever. Something, isn't it?
Whatever. But I mean, I thought you'd hear like a joke that was very much in the moment of the asteroid belt chase in Empire Strikes Back. But this one This one throws us a reference from A New Hope. And it kind of brings this show full circle because we're early in the show. We were talking about, flying through Beggar's Canyon, going through the Stone Needle. Right. We were gonna thread the needle, Jason, you and me. But there was some sort of user error that happened in our Skyhopper, preventing us from continuing the stunt. And one of us paid the ultimate price. Only to return.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait, it goes on?
Come on.
It goes on? All right. You regale us with more of your tale. Only to return when?
Only to return as an AI voice hosting Rebel Force Radio with virtual swank well into the next millennium. That's how I see it all unfolding.
All right, that'll wrap things up for us this week. One more show to go in 2022. But until then, for Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.